at on the computer, and we will go immediately to both our textbook, which I trust you always have with you, and we will concentrate in particular on the last half of chapter 3. Now, if there are things in the first half of chapter 2 that are still unclear, I trust that they will begin to become more understandable through our lesson. Perhaps you had difficulty with the homework. We need to keep our schedule as much as possible, so we will continue on in the second half of chapter 3 today, but including the first half and reviewing the first half as well. So let's go now to our, let's see, there's a question, I believe. Sir, when will we have our quiz? Yeah, I'll let you know. Don't worry. It's going to be a little different today. Let me go to that, show all windows. And there it is. I'm looking straight at it and not realizing what I'm looking at. Last time, nope, this is not. Here we are. We're in chapter 3, I like to call simply building simple sentences. We have had chapter 1, we had some nouns, some names of things, in particular proper names in chapter 1 of people, one of an office, Christos, the Christ, the Messiah, the anointed one, the chosen one, an office that God promised in the Old Testament would fulfill the prophecy of Genesis, which said a human being must win the battle over Satan. Human beings started the battle, lost the battle. Human beings must win the battle. And there's a sense in which God will not take our responsibility away from us to be in the battle completely and to know what it is to win victory over the evil one who first brought sin into the world. But because we ourselves are bent in upon ourselves and are not, just a moment, I'm looking for someone in particular, not there. A man, the man, Christ Jesus, as we are told in the New Testament, is the one who will win the battle. The perfect man. Man made the mess, a very, very evil mess in this world. Man must clean up the mess. Perhaps your mother has taught you, you made the mess in your room. You must clean up the mess in your room. Now, perhaps you didn't have your own room. Very often families I know live all in one room, but maybe you have a corner or even a box. And she said, put your things in a tidy way. That's just a little picture of what God says about this creation. You made the mess. You will clean it up. And so we are very much involved in what God is doing in bringing his kingdom in the world. But we cannot do it apart from the chosen one, the Christos, the anointed one, from the verb chrio, I anoint. Very different from the Hebrew word, Mashiach, the anointed one, the Messiah, but its meaning is the same, even though it's very different form. So Greek, of course, is different from Hebrew. It's very good to know both. Now, in order to learn simple sentences in Greek, we need to remember that we, first of all, look for the verb. I'm not getting I am sharing. I'm not getting my spotlight, but for the time being, I'll let it go. First of all, we look for the verb because the verb might contain also what we call the subject, the person or the thing that is doing the action. For example, it could be I, as in I know. Ginosko, we learned as one of our new verbs we learned. Ginosko, I know. Or ginoskes, you know. Or ginoskete, you plural know. And in those cases, the verb gives us more information than it does in English. So it's very good, important that we start and look for the main verbs, the action words in the sentence, in order to translate the Greek into English. Of course, we're looking here at an English sentence. Once we found the verb, if it's in the third person singular or a third person plural, in other words, if the subject is he, she, or it, possibly one of the three, or the subject is they. In other words, if the form is ginoske, he, she, or it knows, epsilon iota. Remember, we have a verb stem, and then we have endings. And those endings make up the subject, show us the subject in the verb. If the verb ends in usi or usin, then we know it's they. And in those cases, we might have, and very often do have, a subject, which is a noun, the name of something, in either the singular or the plural form. So we look for that subject. And then we also look for usually a direct object. And that direct object, we said last time, is in what we call the accusative case. Greek is an inflected language, very strongly inflected, as is Urdu, many inflections, which is very difficult for the English speaker to get the k and the ki. And I can't remember all the inflections. There are many more than in English. So it shouldn't surprise us that we have this kind of thing in the Greek language. And then the fourth thing is we fit the rest of the sentence around these main parts. We're going to add a couple of main parts today, but this is really the strategy that we have in translation. Now, before we go further, we need to consider one thing that we didn't look at last time, and which is not so strongly brought out in chapter 3 in our textbook, and I need to bring it out. Now, you know much more about this subject than I do, but and I don't know if you will hear the sound. I just thought about that, but I'm not sure I did, but it doesn't matter. Okay, now everything you've just seen is very familiar to you, and I suppose, and I imagine, very enjoyable to you. And I know nothing about it. I was at some of my grandchildren playing baseball on, let's see, last Friday night. It was very, very cold here. I don't understand why I was so cold, because I've been in temperatures much lower, but maybe I wasn't used to it. But as we, in those pictures that we just saw, whether you heard the sound or not, Yeah, I'm sure you got the sense. Some of the sentences that we saw just now are what we call the subject with direct object, and some were actually subject and predicate. And I need to make a difference before we proceed on to the next slide, or actually with the next. Because these two kinds of sentences, simple sentences, we need to know before we proceed. We have this subject, which last time we said is in the nominative case, which we will review in just a moment again. And we have the direct object in the what we call the accusative case. So maybe you didn't hear what he said. I don't know, but I'll repeat it for you. First of all, he said, gather 2 teams. Now we understand that he means he's talking to us. So we understand the subject is you. You gather 2 teams. So we have a subject, you, and we have a verb gather, and we have a direct object. The action pertains to a direct object. You gather 2 teams. Actually, 2 is an adjective. The noun that is really the direct object is teams, but we don't want to complicate things yet. Okay, now we have another verb, will need. It's in the future tense, so we have will need in English. And this time he said, you will need wickets. Wickets is also a direct object. And both of these words, teams and wickets, if you wrote them in Greek, and I don't know what the words are in Greek, modern Greek, I'm sure, would have them, but they would be in the accusative case to show that they are the direct object. You need wickets. Not wickets need you, but you need wickets. How do we know it's you need wickets and not wickets need you? Well, in English, because of the order of the words in the sentence, but not in Greek. In Greek, it's the endings of the word that tell us, this is the direct object. He says also, you will also need a ball and a cricket bat. Notice that both words don't have the article. They don't say the ball, the cricket bat. No, you just need a ball and a cricket bat. So in other words, whichever one it is, doesn't matter, a cheap one, expensive one. We aren't told here. We're just told you need a ball, a cricket bat. And then he had some other words about stumps and words that you know that I don't. Now, there's also in that sentence, in those sentences, at least 2 what we call subject and predicate, where both nouns, okay, you with me? Both nouns, in other words, a name of something, both nouns are in the predicate. And both nouns in the predicate will be in the nominative case, remain in the nominative case. And we use the word predicate, and we have to use these words because they use them in grammar, and we just have to know some little bit of English grammar. Are used when we have almost an equation of 2 things, or better said, one noun describes, or we say actually predicates something to the subject. For example, teams are made of players. 11 is an adjective that describes players, but really the main things are teams are made of players. Now, players is not the direct object because the verb are, or is, or are does not take a direct object. It doesn't do anything. Is or are as a verb, yes, but it doesn't do anything. It describes, rather. And so in Greek, we use in the nominative case for both of these. Teams are made of players. We use the genitive case, which we'll look at in just a moment, to make of in Greek. Same with wickets. Wickets are made of sticks. Wickets are not doing anything to the sticks. See, you might hit or bat the ball. You bat the ball. That's a direct object. The ball is the object that you're batting. But wickets are made of sticks. A ball is made of, I don't know, is it made of leather? Maybe not. Expensive ones, I think, probably are. A ball is made of something. A ball is made of, we're describing the ball. We're not, the ball isn't doing any action. And that's the difference. Now, already in John chapter 1, in the first verse, we have a predicate clause. A clause is a short sentence, sometimes without any express verb. Kai theos ein ho logos. And that doesn't mean actually, and God was being a word, or the word, sorry, ho logos, the word. It doesn't mean that. Greek has this rule, which we'll talk about later, but when you have two nouns connected with ein, was being, or was, or is, esteemed, we'll find out in chapter 4 what that verb really looks like. When you have two nouns connected with are or is, the way you tell the subject is you put the article with the subject, and you don't put the article with the noun, unless you want to make the two equal. So if, for example, John had wanted to say ho theos ein ho logos, the word was God. In other words, the word was the same as God. In other words, there is no God but the word, only one God. That would effectively cancel out the Trinity. There could be no Trinity if John had written ho theos ein ho logos. But he didn't want to equate God and the word. He wanted to describe the word as being divine, as having the qualities of God. And so he did it by putting theos first, which also emphasizes theos by putting it first in the Greek sentence. So we actually translate this little clause, and the word was God. Hard to do in English, in writing. Underline it, the word was God, or put it in italics. It's hard to emphasize a word in written English, but Greek does it by certain methods, and this is one of them. So there's a group called Jehovah's Witnesses who like to translate this part of the verse, and the word was a God, which makes no sense since the Bible forbids idolatry, and you can't have more than one God in the first place. And secondly, that's not what it means. It doesn't mean the word was a God, kai theos, no article. It simply means that John wants us to make sure that we know the subject of the sentence is ho logos, because that's from the beginning, the subject. Ho logos. In arche ein ho logos. He wants us to know in the beginning was being the word. That's also a predicate, a sentence, by the way. So now I hope you understand that when we have a subject, verb, noun, simple sentence, If it has a direct object, it will be in the accusative case. But if it has two nouns in the nominative case, then we have what we call a predicate, not a subject and direct object. And we'll have some more of those. So if you're not quite clear on this yet, don't worry about it. Let's move on and look at some sentences here. I am finding the crowd. In Greek, ton ochlon heurisko. Now, probably it's best if we turn in our textbook to page 59 to vocabulary 3.2, because we need some more words. And we have these words here. If you look down the page in the vocabulary, ochlos, crowd. And all of these words in chapter 1, no, sorry, not true. In chapter 3, all of the nouns, all of the names of things or the names of people, like Petros in chapter 1, are masculine, except for the names of cities, which are feminine. But almost all of the names, all of the nouns, like angelos, the first one, angel or messenger, and then further down the page, cosmos, world or adornment in English. Nomos, the word for law, which is used a lot in the New Testament, 191 times. If you look next to the list, see on the page, there's a number next to each vocabulary word. Oikos, used 112 times, house or household. In that case, it's the people in the house. And so the word can have a bigger meaning than just a building. Ochlos, don't confuse ochlos with oikos. Just a moment. I need to do something for our brother here. On my screen. There we are. Okay. So I am finding the crowd is ton ochlon heurisko. Notice that the verb contains the subject. I look for the subject first, heurisko. Ah, I find, or continuous action, I am finding. The present tense in Greek often, very often, most often contains the idea of continuing, continuous action. That's why I like the progressive or the continuous translation of the present tense. But it's not wrong to use the simple present. He does so in the textbook, so I'll have to use it too. But I want you to get used to the continuous action. Now, Jesus is speaking the word. This is another subject, direct, object sentence, not a predicate sentence. It has a subject and has a direct object. And it's very clear to us when we look that is speaking is the verb. Jesus is the subject because the English order puts Jesus as the subject. Jesus is first. Jesus speaking the word. And the way we write this in Greek is ho Jesus ton logon lege. Lege is third person singular. Notice a. O is a. If you haven't learned the endings of the verb in chapter 2, make sure you know those. Make sure you know all the material, all the words in the previous chapters, and now in chapter 3, all of chapter 3. Because if we don't know it well, when we go to the next chapter, we're very shaky. and it's not so much fun because it becomes so much work. And if we would only lay a good foundation, we would enjoy it much, much more, and perhaps even continue the course. Notice that with proper names in Greek, we add the article. So it's not just Jesus, it's ho Jesus. But when we translate into English, it's simply Jesus. Same with Abraham, ho Abraham, arton lambani. Abraham is receiving or taking bread. Notice I didn't put the bread. Will probably be a loaf of bread, a small, or perhaps a piece of bread. But notice that it doesn't have the article, not the bread, simply bread. He's taking bread. It doesn't tell us what kind and what anything specific, so it just says bread. And in English, in this case, in this kind of general noun, we don't put the indefinite article a, which is very difficult for Urdu speaking students because you don't have very many articles and you don't have the indefinite article, and we have to get used to using it. Because especially if you go to the MPhil level, you go into English writing and you really have to get used to the indefinite article in English. But we don't have it here. We don't have a bread. We just have Abraham is taking, or Abraham is receiving bread. Now, what we have to remember is lambane, arton, ha Abraham means the very same thing as ha Abraham, arton lambane. It doesn't matter what order the words are in because the endings tell me, inform me of the subject and the direct object, who is doing the action and to whom the action is being done. So now I want you to take this slide and we're going to stop sharing just a moment. And I'm going to take the rest of this slide. We're going to pause recording. And let's share the screen. Here we are. Ashfaq, which sentence did your group work on? Ashfaq seems to be connected, but not there. Biptas, translate one of the sentences into Greek, or try as best you can. When I ask you to, translate, you just need to unmute and okay. I'm inserting something in this document. Let's see. Biptas not there. Shervan, James. Participation is
Yes,
great, by the way. Good. Shervan?
Yes, sir. Sir, we translate first sentence. The man is writing.
Okay.
Me and brother George will translate. Who anthropos en graphi e epsilon and iota ending verb.
Okay. I wasn't quite ready. Say that again.
Sir, o anthropos en
N is in N?
yes, sir. This one.
Okay.
Graphi.
So,
Sir, epsilon and iota. No. Epsilon and iota. Endings is he, she, it.
okay.
Yes, sir.
The man is writing.
It's wrong, sir.
My question
Please
is
remove
this,
and.
this word here,
Yes. Yes, sir.
this word here is a little bit strange for me. Hold on just a second. I need to make this a little bit larger. And these words inside our box. Well, somehow it's not getting larger for me. I hope it's readable. Did you? This is not cooperating for me. More layout options. No, not what I want. My box here, I did the wrong thing with. Okay, I'll do it with the next one. Maybe. Oh, there it is. Now, okay. I'm curious as to why you use the word "in."
Sorry, sir. Actually, I see this. I mixed the dative and diphthongs. Sorry for that mistake.
So what did you write here then instead of "n"? Ha, anthropos. Can you, Sharvan?
Yes, sir.
Sharon, sorry, Sharon James.
Yes. Yes, sir.
What did you write for instead of without the "n"? This word "n" is a preposition that we do have in vocabulary 3.2. It means in, and it takes the dative case, which we'll look at in a moment. It doesn't need to be here. The sentence simply is ho anthropos graphe. That's
Okay,
all.
sir. Okay, sir.
So I'm going to take this out. And this is the correct sentence. Okay. Group 2, John Samuel is the only one left right now. Or I don't know if someone else has left. John, can you give us another sentence, one of the others? I don't know which one you started on. Remember, if you participate, it's for your marks. It's a good thing. From room 3, Harris, Shabazz, Bhatti.
Yes, sir. So we have just try to translate the son is wanting Peter.
Okay, so I'm going to move our box down here a bit.
O Gios Tilai Ton Petro.
Please repeat. Paul?
O Geos
Geos with gamma?
Yes, sir. Gamma. Gamma, Iota, Omicron, and Sigma.
Okay. Continue.
Ogios, Thelai, theta, iota, lambda,
Oh,
yeah, Thelai, ton, and petro.
the ending also on. I'm going to put it on because that's correct. The only thing that's incorrect here, someone else would like to correct this word, geos.
Sir,
There is no such word in
Huos.
Sir,
Greek.
it's Hoyos.
It's
Huos.
Huyos.
Huyos.
Okay,
Upsilon, iota, omicron, and
Huios.
sigma. Yes, sir. This one is right.
and
Yes, sir.
actually the accent is wrong, but I won't worry about that right now. Hoff. Actually, no, it is. Huios. I think. Huios, Theleton, Petron. The son is wanting, or the son wants Peter. Now,
Yes, sir.
notice that in Greek, we do usually have the article, which is helpful, actually, even though it's strange to our eyes. It's helpful because it tells us that Peter is the direct object, and Peter is not the one doing the wanting. It is the son who wants. And if I put ton petron first, then there is a little emphasis made upon Peter. The son is wants Peter, which, like, for example, if you have a grandson, most of you won't have grandsons yet, but I do, 8 of them, in fact. And very often they want Omi. Omi is my wife, their grandmother, rather than their grandfather. And the reason is that she has the candy. So that is a reason that grandsons, young grandsons, sometimes like grandmother better for a time being. When it comes to playing baseball, I can't play cricket. But when it comes to playing baseball, then I'm the one they want. So I am also wanted. Okay, someone else?
Sir, I have translated a crowd has a slave.
Okay, and who's speaking now?
Irfan, sir. Irfan is here.
Irfan, thank you. And your group translated this. Sorry, I'm going to leave this down here so that we can look at it. I'm going to put this up here. All right. And how did you translate it?
Sir, Ochlos Eche Doulos.
Okay. A crowd has a slave. Are we correct? Anyone want to correct this, or is this correct as it is?
Sir, it would be Dulon.
Bilkul dermion. We have to define the direct object because we have this verb has. And has takes a direct object. A crowd has, and now we have to know what is it that the crowd has. Not the same as when we have a predicate, when we have is or are. Then we have a description. And in that case, if we said a man is a slave, we are actually defining a man. We are predicating something to him. It's not a direct object. So in that case, a man, anthropos, is, and then we have doulos. And in Greek, we don't actually have to have a verb. In chapter 4, we'll learn what that verb is for is. Right now, we don't know what it is. What is. We don't need it, though, in Greek. If we simply have anthropos, doulos, then by itself would be a man is a slave. Could be a slave is a man, because without the article to define the subject, we don't know which one's the subject, and they're actually equated. They're one and the same. A slave is a man is a slave. But we would probably have the article because that's a little unclear, because a slave could be a woman. So I wouldn't expect that to sentence in Greek. Now we need to move forward. I would like to translate that last sentence here where we have Christ and Peter, and I need to change the layout if I can. Margins narrow, and yeah, and I can get this all in one line. Now, if you made a mistake, don't worry about it. I'm very happy when you make mistakes. Okay, it doesn't lower your grade, and no one should be ashamed of making mistakes. We learn through mistakes. If we don't make them, it's not nearly as interesting. If everybody's perfect, then I don't need to teach the course, right? So who did this last sentence? Anyone?
Sir,
Yes.
I have translated the one Petros, John and Peter are heeding the brother. Eunaeus, Kai, Petros, Akousin.
I'm going to use luo. So, what ending should I put here on this verb, luo?
Sir, Lucy.
Luosin. Luosin.
Ah, you are very clever. Okay.
Luosin.
And
Aklon.
Aklon.
ah, very well. Very well. Very well done. Yes. And we put the nu in because the next word starts with the vowel omicron. So we add this nu here with luusin. Now, why did we use luusin? And we have Peter and not lue, third person singular. He, Peter, he.
Sir, because we have two persons.
Ah,
Christos
yes,
and
yes.
Christos and Petros, they are two, and that's why it's a third plural, third form of third person plural.
Okay, which brings up a mistake. The one mistake in this sentence, otherwise very brilliantly done, gentlemen. And that mistake would be what?
Sir, Christos, not
Christos. Word was
Yeah.
is Christos.
Yeah.
Christos.
Oh, Christos.
And I need the article here with Peter
Oh.
because
Oh.
names in Greek, proper names.
Yeah.
In this case, Christ is a proper name. It is a name, Christ and Peter. We're naming Jesus Christ. In the New Testament, the word actually does become eventually a name. But generally in the Gospels, you don't find Christos except when towards the end of his ministry, Peter says, for example, in Matthew 16, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And when he says that, and Jesus takes that title upon himself, at that point, he is a dead man, because the Pharisees and particularly the Sadducees will do everything in their power to kill him, because otherwise he is a danger for them to overthrow their government. If they don't deal with him, the Romans will, and it could even mean that the Romans will take away their government. It says so in the end of John chapter 11. So Jesus refrained from using this title, even though others tried to use it for him, or even or use the word king, didn't quite get to Christos. Christos was such a dynamite word to apply to Jesus. And there have been so many who said, I am the Christ. And the one promised one, I will deliver Israel and make them an independent people. And everybody thought in terms of politics. And Jesus says in John chapter 8, particularly, you don't know what you're talking about. I am not the Christ in the sense that you define the Christ, but in the sense that the Old Testament means the Christ, which is somewhat different. Now, we need to leave this because we have more to go to. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and we're going to move to a different, or back to our presentation actually from before. So we have translated most of the, and again, things are in my way that I have to move around. Okay. We call them transitive verbs. I'm not going to go into the use of transitive and intransitive. Transitive verbs are actually verbs that take a direct object. Ame, this I am, which means I am, we'll meet ame as a verb in chapter 4. I am, we are, and then he, she, it is, and they are. And we'll learn the forms. One of them we know already. In arche ein, ein is one of those forms. In the past tense, actually, was being, the word in the beginning was being. These are what we call intransitive verbs, and they make a predicate, as here. You are a good cricket player. This is not a direct object. So in Greek, I would put a good cricket player in the nominative case because it's describing you. It is, are is not an action. There's no action taking place. Nothing is done to me. It just describes who I am. So in that case, we do have a nominative case. But we need to, first of all, review, add the articles, and so to the words that we have learned thus far, and they're all masculine that we know from vocabulary 3.1 and the nouns in 3.2, and know that they're all ho logos, ho adelphos, ho anthropos, ho huios. So the word, the brother, the man, and the son here all take the same Greek article if they are a subject or if they are in the predicate position describing the subject. The man, the word, the son, ho huios, is a man. Let's say ho huios anthropos. The son is a man, meaning that probably that he's grown up and he's no longer little, in which case we would have teknon or something, a child, but we're not using that word here. We're using anthropos, adult man. Could mean, of course, anthropos is not necessarily gender specific. It could mean simply a human being, but in this context, and context is we say context is king. I'm going to modify that later on. Context tells us huios, huios anthropos. The subject is the son. The son is a man. Alphos, huios. The brother is a son. The subject is indicated by the article, and huios describes brother as being a son of someone, obviously a son of a father. Now, if we take these endings that we learned last time and we add, I'm going to figure out how to get my spotlight back. If we add the endings, the accusative case, then we have logos, logon, logoi, logus. This we learned last time. These are the words, the endings for this word when it's the direct object in a sentence. Anthropos, huion, eche. A man has a son. Cannot be a son has a man because the endings tell us no. Anthropos is the subject. And huion, this ending tells us this is the direct object. Eche must have a direct object. Has what? I need an answer for this verb. Has something. What is it? What does it have? And
Eche
so
means having.
yes,
Has,
eche means has or is having if you use the continuous. So either one of those would be correct. But if you want to keep it simple, like he does in the textbook, which I understand, it's probably better than has. We have a slight English inflection. Well, I have, you have, he, she, it has. And then the rest are they. We have, you have, and they have. English is also complicated language. I thought Urdu is complicated. English is complicated too, I guess. But remember, again, doesn't matter how we change the words around. We end up with the same meaning. A man has a son. And a man has a son. Still means the same thing. Now, that was a little bit different, and we had that last time. Does a man have a son? Or is a man having a son? Or does a man have a son? In the case of a question mark, I have to provide what we call in English this helping verb, does. Does a man have a son? I can use the continuous or the progressive translation for the present. Is a man having a son? But most of you will probably like to keep it simple with the simple present. Now the article we need to learn this time, ho, logos, the word. But in the direct object, it takes the same ending as the noun. And so it becomes ton logon, not ha logon, not hon logon, but ton with tau, ton logon. This is the article in the nominative and the accusative. If we put the article with the nominative and accusative, masculine plural, then we have hoi, logoi, and tous, logus. So I have to memorize the article form along with the endings for the nominative and the accusative. So I can now say in a sentence, for example, lege ton logon anthropos. And I mean, looking at this sentence, I know from this ending, lege, that a singular person or someone is speaking, and that happens to be anthropos. No article, so I will put a man rather than just man. Sometimes a man in the sense of mankind, and then I don't use the article, but in English, I an indefinite man. A man is speaking. I don't know which one. I'm not pointing out the man. The points out a particular man, but I'm not pointing one out. So I just say a man is speaking, and what he speaks is the word. And then I know with this sentence, not by order in Greek, I know what the object is. The man is speaking the word, ton logon. And then I have to include in English the. It's not correct if I don't have the. So remember this. And remember that we have to get used to this. The word order in Greek does not tell me what the subject is, does not tell me what the direct object is. What the word order in Greek does help me is to understand the emphasis in the sentence, which is very helpful in interpretation of the Greek New Testament. We see things that an English-speaking reader who doesn't read Greek won't see. The man is speaking the word. Notice, ha anthropos. The man is speaking the word because this is the subject, because object, because it is as this ending, on, ton, logon. Not because it comes first. And we can move these words around any way we want to, especially if we want to emphasize something, we put it first in the sentence. I have to watch out that I know, okay, that's the subject. Notice we have plural here, but we don't have a plural on the verb because it's not the words that are the subject, it's the anthropos that is the subject. So a man, anthropos, is speaking or speaks the words, tous logos. Notice the subject, object again. And notice that the article changes with the object, with the noun. It changes, tous logos, ton logon. I have to know the forms of the article. Legosi, logon, hoi, anthropoi. And the translation, the men are speaking, or the men speak a word. Okay. Legosi, because more than one. So as soon as I see, I look at the verb first. I look for it first. As soon as I see this ending, I'm going to look for a word that is plural, which happens to be hoi anthropoi in the nominative case, which goes with this and tells me the subject is the men. If I don't have hoi anthropoi, or a word that is in the nominative case, plural, then I simply translate, they are speaking, or they speak a word. Okay. In other words, if I take this off, hoi anthropoi, and all I have is legosi, logon, then the verb informs me that subject is they. They speak a word. But if I have a subject in the nominative case, then that takes over. There's no they, it's the men who are doing the speaking. Same thing here, except it's the men speaking the words, plural. Okay. The men are the subject. I figured that out already because this is third person plural, and this agrees with it. So it's the men who are doing the speaking. And what are they speaking? Well, they're not speaking sentences, they're not speaking paragraphs. In this case, they're speaking words. Now we're going to skip these. You know all this now. We have lots of examples here that we could have used, but you are too brilliant now. So I want you to turn to page 56, actually, and not page 54. Page 54 was in the 4th edition, but now we're in the 5th and 6th edition. And I believe we're all on page 56. So in these last few minutes, and I'm sorry we didn't get to the quiz. I apologize greatly. We did have a quiz, but time is running out. So we're going to have to do without the quiz. And I know you're very disappointed when you don't have a quiz.
By
Perhaps I should add the word not. You are disappointed, not. Usually. Page 54 or page 56, depending on the edition of the textbook you're using. Don't worry about this. This is Kindle location. When we first started this teaching Greek at FC College, we had to use Kindle. We had to use a tablet, and it became very difficult. I'm always forgetting to look here, but that's not the screen you're seeing anyway. So, okay. The other cases and case endings. This is to finish our chapter. We need to know the vocative, the genitive, and the dative case, the dative case endings and what they do. Now, the first thing we learn are the forms of, 2 of which we know already. The accusative we know because this tells us the direct object. And the nominative case we know because this tells us the subject. But there are 3 other cases. The genitive tells us one thing, possessive of a word, logu. And the dative will tell us either motion to or for a word, or it will tell us what the indirect object is, and I'll explain that in just a moment. And the other one that we have is when we address a word, which we wouldn't normally do unless the person is called word. If that were his name, then I would say loge, word. Same with Peter, Petre, Peter. I then am addressing Peter, Petre. I want to tell you something, Petre. And the only place that the ending changes for the vocative is in the masculine singular. And usually I don't have an article when I have the vocative. There are some exceptions to that, but we'll add the articles in just a moment. But notice that this is a little different. To address Peter is Petre and not Petros. But the others I know already. I just have to memorize 2 new ones, U and omega with a subscript, iota subscript. That's important. Don't leave this off, this iota subscript. Now I also have the plurals, which I have to learn. Logoi, I know already. The vocative is the same as the nominative, and we will come to the place where we won't even talk about the vocative because apart from here in the masculine gender, the vocative is the same as the nominative. So if I'm addressing, say, several people and use the word laos, in that case, peoples, then laoi, peoples, laoi, which sounds the same as the nominative case, the subject. It is. And how do I tell the difference? only by the context. I can't tell the difference otherwise because they're both the same. This one we know, logos, the direct object, but we haven't learned the genitive plural yet, or we looked at it, mentioned it last time. This is the one that will never change, whether the words are masculine or feminine, and we'll learn many feminine words, or neuter words. We have 3 genders in Greek. We're, first of all, learning only the masculine ones. So we'll learn lots of words that are masculine before we start learning some feminine words. This dative, what we call the dative case, in the plural is ois. So if you look on page 56 and 57, let me stop sharing here. And let me share just briefly. I haven't got it open. I need to open it first. And here, and here. And I've got a book open for the other class. So let's see, make sure I'm in the right place. All right, here we are. Okay, I want to go over to that page just a moment. And okay. No. Stop sharing. That's not what I want to share. Share screen. Whiteboard. I don't want the whiteboard. Come on, please. Tell me I want to see the book. It's not seeing the book. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I have the book open. I do. Okay. And I'm going to share the screen again. I need to go to the book. I don't have much time left. I need to go there quickly. Come on, book. Here we are. All right. And spotlight. Now, okay, on page 56, the vocative, genitive, and dative cases. Okay, the genitive case is indicated by u, the ending, or own, plural. 2 common uses of the genitive case. Number 1, with certain prepositions. We don't have postpositions in Greek. Like English, we have prepositions. In other words, the noun follows the preposition, not the preposition doesn't come afterwards, as in Urdu. Many prepositions are followed by the genitive case. For example, apo means from, and ek, out of, from. Usually both are translated from, but ek has more the meaning of out of the middle of something, as opposed to away from something, apo. Now, when I say that and explain the difference, you have to remember that sometimes words can be used interchangeably. An author isn't always looking at his dictionary when he uses a word. So he might say from, and we might expect that he would use ek when he's used apo. But generally, when he uses apo, he means it. He wants us to understand he's moving away from something rather than out of the middle of something. Now, that can be significant. For example, if you're translating about baptism with John, is he coming out of the water? Which might suggest that the Baptists are right. Or is he just coming away from the water, which might give room for, as Presbyterians, for example. I go to a Presbyterian church, even though I'm a Baptist in conviction. because we all love Jesus, and those differences don't make that much difference. Okay, the second one is to show possession. Okay, so a genitive can be used with certain prepositions. So I can't use the genitive, by the way, with, I can't use the nominative case with apo, away from the house. Apo, ho oikos, doesn't work. I have to say apo to oiku, away from the house. I have to use the genitive case with apo, with that preposition. The other thing the genitive case does is to show possession. English indicates a house belongs to a man by using the words the man's house or the house of the man. In Greek, the word man would be in the genitive case, which indicates he possesses the house. Hoi, oikos, tu, anthropou. So the house of the man, I can translate it that way. That's a little, we say wooden in English. Actually, it's better to translate the man's house. That sounds better. Or the men's house, it could be plural, in which case it would be ton anthropon. The ending would be different if it's plural. Sons of Abraham, hoi, hui, oi, to Abraham. Now notice Abraham, it doesn't decline, it doesn't change, even though it's in the genitive case. So how do I know that Abraham is in the genitive case? Because the article tells me that. That's why it's so nice to have the article with proper names. The sons of Abraham. And I don't translate the sons of the Abraham in English. I would in German, but I don't in Greek, in English. So I have it in Greek, the sons of the Abraham, but I just say the sons of Abraham. And notice, or Abraham's sons, it indicates possession. Now, the dative case is the one that will cause us some difficulty. And I'm going to give you a challenge because I don't have much time left in the use of the dative case. The vocative is clear. I use it in addressing somebody. But the dative case is used when in three different ways right now with certain prepositions, particularly in plus the dative. In water. We don't know the word for water yet. So let's just say in the house, which would be in to with iota subscript, oiko. Or, oh, here it is, in to oiko. The slaves, ho douloi, hurisk usin arton. The slaves find bread. Notice arton is the direct object. In the house, in to oiko. Some verbs are followed not by the accusative case, but by the dative case. For example, the only one right now that we have in our vocabulary list so far is pisteuo, I believe in. Pisteuo to anthropo, I believe in the man. Which means probably there's a man standing in front of me at my door, and my wife comes and says, do you trust him? And I say, I believe in the man. Which is not quite the same thing in English as saying, I trust the man, but I believe him. At least there's a little bit of trust there when I say, I believe in him. In Greek, I have to use the dative case with pisteuo. Now, there is a way of saying, I believe into the man, meaning in trust. And that is very important in the Gospel of John, because he will distinguish between a faith that is simply a assent. I believe in someone, I think they're probably okay, and I entrust myself to someone. and he'll use a different expression for that. And you don't see it in English. You only see it in the original Greek. Or if the translation happens to make it clear by translating in trust. I trust. In fact, the word trust is much better in that case with pistuo, but usually it's translated believe. I believe. With the dative case, notice it doesn't take the accusative case, and I have to remember that. I just have to remember that. Pistuo and some verbs like it don't have an object in the accusative case. So pistuo, ton, anthropon, no. Pistuo, to, anthropo, dative case. There's only a few verbs I have to remember that are like that, but pistuo is one of them. Now, one more thing, and we finish our lesson. The dative case is used for the indirect object. God speaks words to the people. That's what we call in English an indirect object. The batsman bats the ball to the fielder. I have to have an indirect object with fielder to tell me, because the direct object is the ball. The batsman bats. What does he bat? The ball, the one that the bowler has thrown. He bats the ball, direct object, but he bats it to someone, or actually he wants to bat it, I think, away from someone out there. But if he bats it to the fielder and the fielder catches it, the fielder is the direct object then. The indirect object. The ball is the direct object. He's hitting it to someone. And there are certain verbs in particular that take the indirect object. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little more video lesson from Dr. Campbell. He explains things very nicely in your homework. So if you are confused, oh, this indirect object thing is not clear to me, don't worry. You'll be able to do the homework and finish the chapter. We'll do a little review. We'll constantly review. And you'll learn more about the indirect object from Dr. Campbell. We're at the end of our time, so I'm going to close. And just one more thing. Don't forget to do, number one, to learn the vocabulary words at the end of each section. So now you have section 3.2, new words. And that includes some prepositions. Ek, apo, and in. And each one takes a different case ending after it. So in, the dative case. Ek, apo, the genitive case. So you need to learn the vocabulary, and you need to, do the Moodle quizzes. A Moodle quiz is not the same as a class quiz. We didn't get to a class quiz today. I'm sorry I disappointed you, but we will have a class quiz next time on Thursday. And on Thursday, Masood will be teaching the class. It will be just as much a class as it would be with me, but I have to go, I have to have an appointment. And so I can't be there. Usually I'm always there, but Masood will teach the class. And he will explain any questions you have about the indirect object or anything in chapter 3 and start chapter 4. So you are free to go now, and I will see you on Thursday. Goodbye. Stop sharing and stop recording. And if there are questions that you have that don't pertain to the indirect object, because I'm going to explain that more. So if rather than doing it now, I won't try to do that. See, stop